Ladies and gentlemen, you're rocking with a GOAT. Kenn Dowell giving you motivation for growth. 2 toes down, he keep it realer than most. He do it for the culture, that's always the goal. This is Strategic Moves with Kenn Dowell. This is Strategic Moves with Kenn Dowell.
Hey, what's up, everybody? You tuned in to another episode of Strategic Moves. I'm your host, Kenn Dowell. This is a place where we bring art, culture, politics, and business all together, and we do it every Sunday right here on this channel. But when I'm not shooting this podcast, I am the owner of Strategic Resources, where we specialize in political campaigns, government, and public relations. I've been doing it right here in this state for over 25 years and met some interesting people along the way, and we want to make your next move a strategic move. So this program gives me an opportunity to do just that. I pick up some of the people that we met along the way, we bring them in, and we talk about some of our experiences, and maybe there's something you can get out of this that will help you in your personal or business life. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, what I need you to do is hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, and the notification bell as well, so that you will know the next time this program is coming on the air. And now we're going to get started because we're in the process of doing Safety Month here. We've been trying to find out, and the title of this series is Cleveland really safe? And what's going on? The summer is getting ready to get started, and we know when it gets hot in Cleveland, it gets hot in Cleveland. So what we're doing today is interviewing one of the gentlemen who's rounding out our series, and we've been really excited for this guy to come on the show. I don't know why, because it's the last person you want to come after you for real. So, but for some reason, I was really excited for him to come on here so we can talk, because what he does is very interesting and we need it in our community and is important. And he's going to share with us some of the things that his office has been doing and what he's been doing for well over a few decades now to keep Cleveland safe. But before I get into that, I want to introduce to you the best podcast producer in podcast history. We're going to give him that. Every podcast, it goes up a little bit more. Now you're the best podcaster in podcast history.
Oh, my goodness.
Check that out.
Why are you putting a target on my back? I literally got a target on my back.
They said our show's not controversial enough. So here we go. He's the best podcaster in podcast history. He's out here today, and he's out helping us get this podcast together. Everybody, give it up for DJ True. What's up, brother?
What's up? What's up, man? You finally wanted to bring me out of the shadows, I see.
Yeah, well, this is the first program that we actually put a camera in there so y'all can actually see him talking. Usually he just be talking. Everybody be like, who the hell is this talking? So actually we put a camera in there today so y'all can actually see who he is and what he does behind the scenes as we put this program together. So what's going on, brother? We ready to get started. We got the guy in. We got to get going.
Man. Y'all don't want this guy knocking on your door, that's for sure.
Well, you might do, depending on what the circumstances is, because he do a whole lot of things, and he's going to talk about some of those things. So in certain cases, you really might want him to be the one that knocks on your door. So we're going to get started with that. And without further ado, we want to welcome Mr. Pete Elliott, US Marshal Mr. Pete Elliott, to the program. So what's going on?
Thank you very much for having me here.
Oh, thank you for coming out, man. Yeah, you can pull that up a little bit. You can always move it, or slide your seat up. Let's do that.
Oh,
there you go.
I think I got it.
There you go. There you go.
Thank you.
All right. So, man, we want to welcome you to the program, man. Thanks for taking the time to come out here. And we know that it's been you've been a busy man in the last week or so. And we wanted you to come in, I believe, a couple of weeks ago. And we had to reschedule because you had to leave town on some other stuff that was going on in another town. And when you got back, almost ran into the same situation here.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, it's been a violent couple of months for us in law enforcement.
Really. And so I just want to thank you for coming on. People really want to hear what's going on here in Cleveland. I hope you got enough to enlighten us and tell us what's happening. But before we go there, I want you to give us a little background about yourself. You know, I do my pre-podcast and found out some stuff about him. And so tell us, you grew up here in Cleveland. What's your background? High school? Let's go back. I want to go back.
I went to the greatest school on earth, St. Edward High School.
See, there he is.
But it's, born and bred here. I've been in law enforcement, federal law enforcement, 37 years here in the Cleveland area. 4 years before that, I worked undercover narcotics. So I've been in law enforcement 41 years.
Really?
I started at the age of 6. By the way, for the record.
Really?
Only kidding.
I was like, now what you doing, 6?
But it's been an honor. It's was appointed by President Bush in 2003, and since that I was retained by President Obama, Trump, and Biden since then. So I happen to be the longest serving U.S. Marshal in the history of Ohio.
Wow.
So it's been an honor. I follow my dad's footsteps, who was a deputy U.S. Marshal here in Cleveland, and he ran the Federal Witness Protection Program back in the 70s and 80s here in Cleveland. And it all started with my great-grandfather, who was a police chief of Alliance, Ohio, many years ago.
So law enforcement is just bred in you.
Yep, it's been in our family for many, many years.
So coming out of, so you went to St. Ed's, and out of St. Ed's, you decided, what, I want to be a police officer? You went to college? Or what was your thing?
Yeah, not exactly. Little I went through the kind of the hard knocks of life, as I say it. So I was a baseball player at St. Ed's. I thought my future was going to be playing baseball.
What position you played, man?
Third base, senior year. I was up to bat against Lake Catholic, and thought I had a shot, and I had some offers from some colleges. I got up there and I hit the best ball ever in my life. Line drive right off the left field fence, off the really good pitcher. But my knee got stuck and buckled and busted. And I crawled on my hands and knees to first base. And I can still remember my coach coming out. His name was Ray Schrader, and I still remember him coming out back then. This is 1980, and looking down at me and saying to me, "Son, remember, everything happens for a reason and a purpose." And back then, as an 18-year-old kid, that wasn't what I wanted to hear when they were carrying me off on a stretcher. But I think sometimes in life, you know, his words, you know, still ring clear with me.
So after that, I know that didn't defeat you. You still tried to come back, right? Or the knee thing was just that bad?
So I started working security at I never made it back.
Really?
That was before I took scalp surgery.
Okay.
So I still have a scar on my knee.
So you had to get surgery and the whole thing.
I was on crutches for a while back then. And you know, ever since those days, it's better now. For the scopic surgery and so on, you come back pretty quick. But not back in those days. So I was on crutches for a while. Basically started working security. Nobody had gone to college in my family. My father or my mother never went to college. Started working security at the old Higbee's, Hallie's.
Oh, yeah.
And you remember those from the Cleveland days and so on. And then started at 21 years old, became an undercover narcotics agent. And I started putting myself through college. I did that in Cuyahoga County, Lorain County.
What force was you on?
I was on the West Shore Enforcement Bureau and the Lorain County Narcotics Unit. Back then. And then started putting myself through college, and then became a deputy U.S. Marshal. Those are the people that work for me today. In 1987, where my father was a deputy, run the Federal Witness Protection Program, and then finally received my degree when I was in my late 20s.
So you was doing that all while you were
working.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what did you get your degree in?
Public administration.
Okay.
So I had gone to Tri-C and received my 2-year degree, and then went on to a 4-year degree at Capital University, and got that in public administration.
Yeah, Capital is down there in Columbus, right? Okay. All right. So then how long was you in that before you start? What was your descent? How did you sort of climb up the ladder from that?
So at 25, going back in time here, I was a deputy U.S. Marshal. Did that for 5 years, finished my degree. The Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives came along and offered me a position in Cleveland. And I went with them and did that for 11 years. During that time, I worked violent crime and carjackings in Cleveland. We had back in the day, we put together the first federal carjacking case ever in the early 90s when they made that a federal crime.
It's crazy. We are that old that we could remember the very first. I remember when that started happening, people was like, man, people are carjacking people, just like snatching them out their cars and stopping. I remember when all of that stared coming out.
And now it's like an everyday occurrence, unfortunately.
Right,
But
exactly.
back in those days, just was kind of coming out. And it was basically, back then they called it armed robbery, with a gun. But when you have a gun and you rob somebody at a car, it's actually a federal crime, as long as you can show interstate nexus. So back in those days, I think it was 94, we had the first federal carjacking case. The individual here in Cleveland, his name was Ellis McHenry. He robbed 3 people, put a gun to their head, stole their vehicles, and then we charged them federally, because when you use a gun, commit a violent crime, and you show interstate nexus where a car is manufactured outside of the state of Ohio, so that's interstate nexus, then it becomes a federal crime, and you're looking at mandatory time. In his case, it was 52 years.
Really, for carjacking?
For carjacking.
So how often do y'all prosecute federally for those?
Well, now things have changed over the years. It's and again, I'm out of that realm. You know, we handle missing children, fugitives, violent crime, and other agencies such as ATF will handle those federal carjacking cases. So I don't have that'd be something for your U.S. attorney. I know Becky Lutzko was in here. That'd be a question to ask her, how many of those are prosecuted now. So that's what we did at ATF. I also worked explosive cases, had a very big case here in Cleveland. Was international. It was on an individual in 1996, from those that can remember, in Bedford, Ohio. There was a storage unit there, and we had found 200 pounds of explosives and automatic firearms that were stored there for nearly 20 years under fictitious names. And then what we were able to do during the 5-year course of that investigation is tie that to an Armenian terrorist organization that were headquartered right here in Cleveland, and use those bombs to blow up Turkish facilities across the country, including New York, Los Angeles, and the Boston area.
Wow.
And so when I arrested that individual, that was in 2001, I believe it was, became international news because he's a prominent person who was actually a vice president at Tri-C University. But the Armenians and the Turks, you know the history, 1915 to this day, the Turkish government doesn't recognize the Armenian genocide since 1915. So their whole process during the 1970s, they were the most clandestine terrorist organization in the country. Their focus was to bomb Turkish facilities and bring attention to the Armenian genocide.
Wow. And you were part of that team, or that was your case?
Yeah, it was my case. We made the arrest on that.
Wow. So how long were you with the force before you started? You became
I was on the streets. So if you go back before I became the US Marshals, I was on the streets for 20 years. So I worked narcotics, guns, the terrorism cases, the bombing cases, and so on.
And that was all with the Marshals?
It was ATF for 11 years, a deputy marshal for 5, and undercover narcotics agent for 4.
So how long the Marshal Agency has been around?
Longest, oldest federal agency in the nation, created in 1789 when George Washington appointed the first 13 U.S. Marshals. So ever since 1789, my position as a U.S. Marshal has been appointed by the president.
So take us through that process of where were you at and how did that go, man? You know, hey, now I'm about to be the guy. And so let me get this right. When you become the Marshal, you're the only one in Ohio, right? You got the whole state, right? Or is it broken up?
Well, my good friend Michael Black, who's the U.S. Marshal in Southern Ohio, he begged to differ. We joke about that all the time. In some states, it's by judicial district. So there's one Marshal for Nevada. There's one for Arizona. There's 2 in Ohio, north and south. So I have 40 counties for Northern Ohio. Michael Black has 48 counties. He's just appointed by President Biden. He has 48 counties of Southern Ohio. He's a great guy, former Ohio State trooper. So 94 marshals in the country, depends on the area. Michigan, I believe, has 2 marshals. And again, Texas has a number of U.S. Marshals. Depends on the territory. Again, Arizona, Nevada have 1 U.S. Marshal, and so on.
Oh, okay. All right. Because I was like, man, that's a big territory if you got the whole state, you know, and figuring all the stuff that's going on. I figured you probably had somebody, but we never hear about that guy. Only person we hear about is you.
He just started about a year ago. You're gonna hear more out of him. He's a great guy.
So what's the process like when you get the nod that, hey, you know, you're going to go? Is it a group of people or you?
Yeah, well, you have to get recommended by the U.S. senators and appointed by the President of the United States. And, you know, my father, you know, I'll tell the story real quick, is my father had tried for the position of U.S. Marshal a number of times in the 70s and 80s. He is the most qualified person. He never received the position. Never could get it. Well, I think it was about 2000, right before that, I decided that, hey, why don't I put in for that position? I got 20 years in law enforcement, but as I was told by others, I was basically laughed at and told people like me don't get these type of positions. So the best thing you can ever do to me is laugh, right?
Wow.
So I remember going through the process, and I didn't know anybody politically. Ended up in the process, and I really wanted to get appointed because my father always wanted the position. My father was in a Cleveland Police bagpipe band, always wanted to be standing there with me when I took my oath. And I went through the process, which is like a year and a half recommendation process, and they chose somebody else for the position. So it left me kind of crushed, and 9/11 happened. The individual that was supposed to get this position withdrew his name. So that gave me another shot at it, at least I thought back then. So back then, they literally selected another person for the position. So as I like to say today, I'm the last man standing.
Wow.
So there's only two of us. You know, my good friend in Alabama is the longest serving US Marshal, I think, in the history of our nation right now. And he's got a little bit longer than I, and I'm second in the country. There's only two of us left from the Bush days. So end of the day, it's been an honor. The best thing I was able to do is once I did get the nod and the appointment, I was able to get my swearing in right here in the city of Cleveland and bring my father up on stage to take my oath with me.
Excellent. So he did get to actually stand with you, and you got that done. That's excellent.
Come to my office, I'll show you a great picture in my office of me and my dad together.
So let's talk about what it takes to be a U.S. Marshal. If you wanted to join the force, one second. And Lateef, can you turn my mic down just a little bit? Testing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, you turned it down? All right, that sounds better. So my question, what does it take to be, if you want to be a U.S. Marshal, what do you do to be a U.S. Marshal?
So I have a great group of people across the district. I've been able to hire over the last 21 years as a Marshal, a lot of quality people. I have a little bit of everything. I have a former U.S. Navy SEAL who was a police officer. I just hired 3 police officers, a Border Patrol officer. I've hired a number of my interns over the years. So about 75% of my office right now, probably close to, are former interns of mine. I've, females, very honored and proud that 2 U.S. Marshals that are in my position. One's getting appointed right now by President Biden. Randa Holloway, that used to run my great program in Cleveland back in 2003. She's going to be the new U.S. Marshal for Alabama. And Middle Mobile, Alabama. And Kathy Jones was the first female U.S. Marshal ever in the state of Ohio and Columbus. And she came from my office. And she left probably about 2014, I think. So I have you need to be, I like police officers. I like people with college degrees.
And these are,
I like personal people.
These are the deputies we're talking about.
These are deputies,
okay.
Right. And, at the end of the day, I want people that are going to be able to deal with everything in life at any time, in any situation. Every one of these interns, everybody that's ever come to my office, first thing I tell them is this: I don't care who you are. I handle all the federal inmates. Anybody gets arrested federally comes in our custody. I don't care if it's a president of the United States. Don't care if it's an inmate. Doesn't care if it's a cleaning lady like my mother was for 50 years at a church. You treat everybody with courtesy and respect, not only inside this office, but outside this office. And what I mean on the streets and internally in my office, you treat everybody with courtesy and respect, no matter who they are in life. And I've had governors and all the senators and everybody come through my office. To me, it makes no difference that if you're cleaning the office or in a high level position. I want everybody treated the same.
Give me an ink pen behind you in that box. Thank you, sir. So let me ask you, how many officers how many deputies work in your?
Well, so it's broken down tiers. I've got Cleveland, Akron, Youngstown, Toledo. Then I have a task force that is in all those cities, along with Mansfield, Canton, Lorain, Lake Geauga, Ashtabula, and a cold case unit. So my regular staff probably is about, with contractors, maybe about 60, if even that. And then I have 350 men and women that are part of my fugitive task force across the district. We're one of the only agencies, we have the broadest jurisdiction of any federal agency. So Right now,
Any?
We have the broadest jurisdiction. So I swear in all the members of our fugitive task force, Cleveland police officers. Once I swear them in, we give them the federal powers of arrest, which means they can arrest for anything, anywhere, at any time within our country. So their jurisdiction becomes national. So I think we just sworn a number of other Cleveland police officers. So I may have about 20 Cleveland police officers right now, part of my task force. They were all out with us the other day when the policeman was killed. Jacob Durbin and
Uclic,
and we worked that very hard. So I have about 350 men and women. Then in my court security staff is about 120 retired officers that handle the court security of the building. So when you walk in the building, which have been the federal courts before,
federal building, okay,
you're going to see the men and women in blue jackets, and they're our first tier of security.
Wow. So you got a pretty big department of people that you get there.
Right.
Do they go through academy like everyone else?
Yeah, we have five in the academy right now. 3 we just sent there, 5 in the academy right now. And it is a tough, 5-month academy. Plus you have to maintain physical standards, not only in the academy, but your entire career.
Okay.
So that's everybody underneath me. That's civil service. Those standards you got to maintain throughout your entire career. If you don't maintain those standards, you're out the door. So we have a pretty good group of people that are driven because they're doing very dangerous work every single day.
Can you work in the marshal's office and not be a deputy? Is there civilian opportunities?
Yeah, I have a number of contractors. So we also handle asset forfeiture. So we seize boats, houses, cars. A few years back, it was a 43 diamond carat ring, some carat ring. It was something ridiculous. And we sold that for $2.5 million, I think it was back then. So we seize those assets. That money goes back to crime victims and their families. So we have a number of civilian personnel that work in those units, along with different contractors that work in our office.
So you can do multiple things there. You don't have to be a deputy. If you want to come in, you can do other stuff. And most of the other places had that same opportunity.
Right. Yeah. The U.S. Attorney's Office, FBI, no different. I know you spoke with them already. Yeah, it's no different. I think there's civilian opportunities there for people. So
let's get into when we talk about joining the force and being a part of your team and bringing people on. How difficult is it when you picking out the cases? So most of the stuff you do. Well, let me back up. I'm gonna back up before I get into that. I was setting that up. The question can you tell us what does the U.S. Marshal handles? Right. And then we'll get into all the other stuff.
All right.
So what's in your office? I get an idea of what you do, but for my millions and millions of people watching, what do the U.S. Marshal do?
So what we do is this. Again, I got a very dedicated staff across Northern Ohio. We run the Northern Ohio Violent Fugitive Task Force. So that was the first thing I did in 2003. I was appointed in March. I created the task force in June of 2003. So those are the men and women out there every single day, those 350 men and women that are out there making arrests on the most violent out there. They're the ones who are making homicide arrests, anything high profile that's happened in the last 21 years. My people have been involved in it. Sexual predators, robbery suspects, homicide, violent crime. Our people are out there every single day making arrests on violent criminals, not only in Cleveland, but in Toledo and Akron across the district. So that's one of the things we handle is fugitive apprehension. 2015, Congress gave us expanded powers related to missing children. So one of the things I did here, we started a full-time missing child unit, which my people are on right now. They've been on all the Amber Alerts. They've been on everything that's happening immediately because that's what I want them to do. Our good sheriff here, who is a great partner, Sheriff Patel, assigned a full-time deputy to my task force to handle missing kids with us. So we have full-time deputy U.S. Marshals and sheriffs and a Cleveland police officer is going to be joining, working together every day on every case, including the Keyshawn Williams case, which we were just out on yesterday. The young man that went missing last June.
That's the one with the mom.
That's the one with the mom. So missing children, fugitive apprehension, protection of federal judges. I have a number of federal judges in Northern Ohio with courthouses all there. We protect the federal judges. We protect the courthouses. Any threats that come in against those judges, we handle.
Okay.
And the increase has been astronomical just within the last 10 years. It's been like a 300% increase on the number of threats against federal judges.
Really?
Protection of the U.S. Attorney. I know U.S. Attorney Let's Go was in here. We handle threats against the U.S. Attorney and protection of them if there's any situations that arise. No, that's another thing we handle. Asset forfeiture, talked about that. Seizing boats, cars, houses. The Federal Witness Protection Program, which you've heard about through TV. The U.S. Marshal Service runs a Federal Witness Protection Program. Anybody gets arrested, terrorism, public corruption, drug trafficking comes through us. We handle the housing of those inmates, and then we handle, the housing and the transportation of those inmates. We pay, I think I give Mahoning County, where the majority of my inmates are, the Youngstown area, about $4 million a month to house inmates.
Wow.
So it's expensive, but that's our responsibility. Again, anybody, because of our broad jurisdiction, we swear in everybody on the Joint Terrorism Task Force. Locally, we swear in them. Typically ATF task forces, and I've, sworn in thousands over the last 21 years.
Wow. How many people you think you arrested?
Well, I know that because we're closing in. We just had our, this June will be our 21st anniversary. We're closing on 60,000 arrests.
In your career, you think?
What we've done as a task force within the last 2 decades is almost 60,000.
Wow. That's a lot of people, man.
That's a lot of people.
Who's your most memorable one?
Well, I just, the case that I just spoke about with another station was a good case for me to close because it's a case my father worked in 1969.
Really?
And it was a individual that lived in Lakewood, a couple streets over from where we lived. And he had robbed a bank, stole from a bank in 1969, $215,000, and was never seen again. And my father passed away in 2020. It was a lifelong case. And about 2021, I think it was, we got some right information, right time, went to the Boston area. We were able to close that case and bring closure after 5 decades. There's another individual named...
Hold on, go back. How much money did he steal, man?
$215,000.
Woo!
Another individual, real quick, his name was Bobby Thompson. His real name is John Dowell Cody. He had built everybody out of, in this area, Cuyahoga County, across the country, out of $100 million.
Whoa.
He set up a fake Navy Veterans Association. They've since written books. I think they're doing a movie on it. He's $100 million. And my people tracked him down to Tampa, or to Oregon, and we made the arrest on him in Oregon. He had 19 fake identities, including while he was on the run. He was taking pictures with him and the President of the United States.
What?
So, yeah.
How the heck you do that?
He donated lots of money. And
what?
In fact, the book is called, individual wrote it out of Kentucky. It's called Call Me Commander. And it's really, it's interesting, but 19 different identities, including, staying and living under his fake name. When we arrested him, he had $1 million in a storage unit. So, and then, we have all the cases that come up every day. And we've been on so many over the years, from the Anthony Sowell case right over here to, people that murdered their entire families to, case after case after case. So, and again, it's my people that are out there doing it, and our partnerships here locally and across Northern Ohio that make a difference.
So who have in your career, and we're going to get to the serious stuff, who's been on the run the longest? You've been like, one we want, and you can go to the US Marshals website,
usmarshals.gov. His name's Lester Eubanks. He raped and murdered a 9-year-old girl, and he was out of Mansfield, Ohio. And he, after he raped and murdered her, he went back after he'd shot her, went back and beat her over the head with a brick. She was 9 years old, wanted to be a nun. Her sister's still alive, lives in the Mansfield area. He went to death row. Back in the 70s, early 70s, the state of Ohio furloughed him for a day to go shopping in a shopping mall. And he's never been seen again.
Whoa, hold on. Are you kidding? How in the world did he get a furlough day?
Furlough for a day. So he was never seen again. So, hey, he's number one on our list right now, my list. That's a guy I want to bring closure to that family. It's been a long, long time, right?
Who granted him? I still ain't got over that. Let him go to a mall, you said?
Shopping mall by himself.
By himself?
Yeah.
Why he
Dropped him off the door and let him go inside.
The authorities did?
Yeah, the prison did, yes.
Whoa. I bet they changed those rules.
They changed those rules. That
Wow.
was 1973.
That is wild. That's got to be about the wildest story I've heard on this show. you bought one today. That is wild. And he's still how old would this guy be right now, you would think?
81, I think. I'd have to look at his date of birth. I think he'd be about 80.
You think he's still around?
I think he's still around. I think we know where his family is. We think he's still alive.
Y'all still watching him. You're gonna find him.
Dude, we're gonna get him.
Y'all gonna get him. I'm confident in that. So let's talk a little bit about what's going on in Cleveland. We got so many things to talk about as it relates to that. I'm gonna start with the missing children and stuff that's going on. That seemed to be a big one that's happening here. And it's not just children. It seems like a lot of people is just coming up missing and that kind of thing. What's your thoughts about what's going on as it relates to Cleveland?
Well, I don't think, and when Wayne Drummond was a police chief, we had conversations on this. Mm-hmm. And there's a certain point in time where I think certain people made it. Look, one person is too many to be missing, mm-hmm. But I think what's going on in this city is no different than what's going on in any other city. They're mm-hmm. not just coming up missing for the most part. Mm-hmm. We have a lot of kids that we've been looking for from 13 to 18 that are usually abused, neglected, mm-hmm. abandoned, or trafficked. Okay. And they run from their places. We've recovered the same kids sometimes 3 times. Mm-hmm. So, and sometimes even more than that. So, we're on that right away. We're on it with our partners here in Cleveland and the Cuyahoga County Sheriff and across Northern Ohio, whether it's Toledo or Youngstown or Mansfield mm-hmm. or Lorain or Akron, we're on it. So I think there's a number of cases here, but I don't think it's any different. I don't think people are getting snatched off the streets like mm-hmm. it was made to believe a while mm-hmm. ago. Mm-hmm. But again, some of the, unfortunately, some of the situations these kids are running to are better off than where they're running from. Mm. And that's pretty bad, right?
Right.
So, we've seen a little bit of everything. Kids that disappear or run away from the east side, the west side. Mm-hmm. We have caught a number of people, especially recently. And the other thing we enforce, which I forgot to mention, is sexual predators. Mm-hmm. We have a full-time unit that does that. We have caught a lot of 14 and 15-year-old girls with 50-something guys that, will take these kids and be in a hotel room with them somewhere. Mm-hmm. We've had kids that are lured. I've had one kid that was from the Lyndhurst area, the Mayfield area, that was lured down the Mexican border. Mm. When we recovered that child, they were tied up with chains. Mm. We've had a little bit of everything. We just had the Amber Alerts, a couple of them recently. One where someone stole a car and, the baby was in the backseat of the car and they took off with the car. We were able to recover the child and arrest the person that did that. Mm-hmm. So, the good thing is the U.S. Attorney's Office has been great at prosecuting our cases on sexual predators mm-hmm. that take these young kids mm-hmm. and we find them, with very young kids and they're, again, full adults.
And it was messed up. What you were saying was in some cases, running to the situation is better than where they were coming from. In that case, and what you're saying, I guess, is in some of these young girls and even maybe guys that, if they find an older person that's taking care of them, they might feel that's better than the abuse that they're facing at home. And I'm not saying none of that's right. Yeah, and that's right. Not what we're saying. We're just saying that abuse is abuse. and it's truly messed up out here. What's going on? What about the young lady who's been on the news with her son? She's been all over the place, and I see her. Heart goes out to her because she's really pushing that hard. I imagine your office is working with her.
Well, right. Are you talking about Keyshawn?
Yes.
Yes, we are. In fact, we were just out on that again yesterday. But my office, along with the Cleveland Police Department, the sheriffs, are working that. We are doing a lot of searches. We're on it. With our partners in the Cleveland Missing. They're on it also. So, we'll bring closure at one point. We don't have that closure as of right now today. We want those. We have a lot of money to pay. I think we're up to $22,500, if not a little more, for any information that someone may have out there that knows what happened. And we know for a fact that somebody in the community knows what happened. And you can call our missing child hotline at 1-877-377-US-MS.
Hold on one second. Hey, Kennedy, he's going to give you this number again. I want you to go ahead and put that in the ticker tape, so while we're playing, it can go across. All right, give her a number real slow. So she's going to write it down.
1-877-377 US-MS for US Marshal Service.
Excellent. If you don't mind, go in there and make sure she got that number. You know it, right? The number you just said. You guys got it?
Ethan?
She got it?
Okay.
Okay, cool. All right, we can keep going.
Okay, so yeah, we're working that. Yes, so we are working that.
So, when do a person call the U.S. Marshal? Because, and I understand, because in essence, I figured out the marshal is basically the sheriff for the United States. If we were to go in hierarchy, we know we have our police chief here, and we know we have our prosecutor, and we have a sheriff. And in this particular case, it seemed like the marshal is actually the sheriff for the United States. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, that's fair to say. It is kind of, I guess you can equate that to being the sheriff of the United States in a lot of ways.
So when do I call the U.S. Marshal, other than calling those other lines of things to get up there to you?
Well, actually, anytime. So we have a tip line set up for fugitives. We have a tip line set up for missing children. We preview a fugitive of the week every week of those that are the most wanted out there. We work in partnership. And again, I have 350 local officers assigned to our task force on top of our deputy U.S. Marshals. So every day when something happens right in Cleveland, or every day something happens in Lorain, or happens in Toledo, or in Canton, or Mansfield, and so on, we get those cases right away because we're working in partnership with them. For instance, this, it's been a bad couple of weeks, but with the police officer that was killed,
correct.
We had our whole task force there within 1 hour. Euclid has been a strong partner of ours for 21 years. They may have been our first partner on our task force, and have had an officer assigned for 21 years. So as soon as that happened, we were on it right away. And within an hour, we were there. We handled the situation, and my men and women were able to track down that fugitive to Shaker Heights, and so on.
So Pete, what's going on in Uclic, man? I mean, that's your guy out there. He on the TV, it seemed like once a week. I mean, I'm getting to this point that I know him now. It's like that sheriff, that chief is constant. Why you think, what's the switch? Is more people that migrated out there? Why is Uclic turning into this powder keg of everything?
Yeah, Scott's a really good guy. Scott Myers, a police chief out there. Really, I was really impressed by his leadership when this whole thing happened. So I don't have the answers to that. I got my own theories on a lot of things that, we can talk about, but I've seen a breakdown with a lot of things, including the family environment over the period of time. You
can talk about it, Pete.
All right. Well, one of the programs that I started right here in 2005 at Mount Sinai Baptist Church, my good friend CJ Matthews, who I just spoke to,
Community Safe Surrender,
as Fugitive Safe Surrender. And in that program, we started right there, close to here on 75th and Woodland. We gave people the ability to come and surrender. And I remember me and CJ and the prosecutor and a couple others at the time, we didn't know if the program was going to work or not. We had no idea. People looked at me like, you're crazy. This is never going to work. But what happened, during that 4-day period is we had 850
fugitives. I remember
peacefully and voluntarily surrender and come through the doors of that church. So, including 300 that were wanted for felonies. We put judges in the churches. We put prosecutors in there, public defenders. We brought in reentry and job placement.
That was part of CJ's team. Yeah, you guys do that for years. Yeah. I remember that.
Probably, so you remember it. And again, it was highly successful. It gave us another tool in our toolbox to utilize. Since that day, we took it all over the country. Went to Phoenix next. Went to New Mexico and Detroit. My good friend Marshall Fudge, who was a big supporter of it as the mayor of Warrensville, then as U.S. Congress, and so on and so on. And we've had over 70,000 fugitives peacefully and voluntarily surrender. I want to do that again here in Cleveland. We're going to be doing it in some different areas across northern Ohio, but it gives us another tool in the toolbox. And during that, I found out that look, people don't listen to people like me. I get that. But they do listen to people like the minister and the ministers in the community, because that minister's there at birth, marriage, and death. And they're often the most important person in that community. I'm big on utilizing ministers in the community and the clergy in the community. I really do believe they make a difference. United Pastors and Mission has been a great, partner of mine over a couple decades. And we need to again, CJ just called me yesterday trying to figure out what else can we do? How can we make things better? I'm all for trying to do that, right? But it's things, again, to me, the violence against our profession within the last 10 years has got so much worse. Went to North Carolina, got sent there when the 4 officers were killed, including a deputy US Marshal. Saw the families, saw everybody, came right back here. And then we had the Uclic police officer killed. And 2 weeks before that, one of my officers was stabbed in the neck and attacked. And then 2 weeks before that, another of my officers, they had a gun pulled on them. So it's just,
Is it violence against the officer? Or is it just the level of violence in people have gone to the point of their?
I think there's a lack of respect. I think
you think it's a respect.
I think there's increasingly becoming a lack of respect. And this is only my opinion.
No, that's fine.
I'm just telling you the way it is. But again, we got to come up creatively with new kind of strategic opportunities and partnerships, and continue to do what we're doing. But we need to come up with some different things too.
It's like you say, it's a respect thing also. I think people, and it's not just one person. I see enough videos, it's women, it's everybody. It seems like people are just, and when we say the level of violence get there, that's one thing. But like you say, just the general respect and everything else is just not there for law enforcement anymore. And I think that is a reason why it elevates to the level of that type of thing.
It seems easier for people to shoot people now than it was back in our day, right? When you got an argument, you argued,
you fought and you got it right. No,
not anymore. It's just becoming.
I haven't seen nobody fight. I really haven't. I've seen people argue, and after argument, it gets so bad that you just hope nobody's going to shoot anybody at the end of it. But like you say, where guys was like, you know what, come on, we're going outside and stuff. That don't happen anymore, or any of that, and it's just really bad. So that's a good analogy of what's going on in our community right now, and it's a thing that you guys going to have to try to figure out how y'all going to fix it, because we on the back end and we're trying to figure out how to change it. But for the future, man, I'm really kind of scared, man. I don't know what it's going to look like, man, with just everything, not just this, man.
I don't even have, I should have brought the numbers with me, but the amount of people just within the last 10 years we've arrested for homicide alone.
Right.
Here in just the Cleveland area has been off the charts.
Right.
Off the charts.
And one of the things that O'Malley had came in and that we are really working, and the reason why I'm doing this program is to try to bring light to some of the stuff we're talking about. A lot of the homicides and current things that's taking place in the African American community. A lot of these crimes are crimes that we're committing on ourselves. And so with that, that's why, this conversation is to be talked. And Pete, I'm a I'm an open guy like that. So I'm not afraid to have those discussions and talk about those things. But yes, we have to do better in our community in order to change some of these things that's going on.
Right. And we, you know, and for us in law enforcement, you got to continue to think outside the box, like Fugitive Safe Surrender. You know, the gang resistance education training program I brought here in 2003, and Miranda Holloway, who is going to be the next US Marshal in Mobile, Alabama, ran the program for me. But what we did with Miranda is we partnered the churches together with the schools and diverse.
Don't worry about that, Pete.
We partnered.
Okay, we're good.
We partnered diverse districts together, like Chagrin Falls and East Cleveland, and Parma and Warrensville Heights. And then we brought all those kids together, and then partnered with the Cleveland Center for Arts, partnered with this, and partnered with the Cavaliers, the Browns, the Indians, had celebrities come in and talk to the kids, had them go out to Chagrin go out to East Cleveland, partner everybody together and work together. And it was a phenomenal program. And Miranda was so good at it. We put her in the schools for a 13-week period and just had her be the face of law enforcement, which is non-combative, combative. And to this day, she just told me recently, not that long ago, she still has kids calling her from 20 years ago that are still her friends because they trust her. We got to continue to do things like that, you know, with the school systems, have a different approach. Again, try to partner together with as many different things as you can put together, give kids hope, because really a lot of this is, let's call it what it is. I mean, there's a lot of kids that don't have a lot of hope. There's a lot of kids that have, you know, never been outside of Cleveland before.
That's correct.
Right?
Oh, there's kids who haven't even lived on part of town who've never been to the lake.
So there's a lot, you know, there's different views from different places in life. And, you know, again, I think, you know, we in law enforcement, you know, again, I'm big on the churches, big on the ministry. You know, I've got to continue to partner together with, you know, diverse groups to come up with programs that are going to work and make sense.
Well, what happened, P? Why did they stop? And is there any hopes of bringing some of those back?
Yeah, I'd love to bring back the great program. Different, you know, money over the years, funding was cut on a couple different programs. Yeah, it just got cut.
Funding.
And it got cut over the years and kind of left us, you know, I
think we should try to fight, Pete, to try to bring back the Fugitive Safe Surrender. Yeah. I like to help with that and see what we can do. You know, I was Marsha's political director for 15 years.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so me and her very tight.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
I'm her political director. I was talking to her this morning. Matter of fact, before I
was going to call her. That's funny. I'm going to call her when I leave. But,
exactly.
She was a good friend. So she was one of the first mayors that partnered along with the mayor of Parma with us in Warrensville Heights. I'll tell you a great thing. So Marsha's if you remember this, Marsha's the mayor, Frank Bova's the police chief.
Correct.
Who became our sheriff. Probably still to this day, one of the best 5 cops I've ever met in my life. Former Cleveland cop, former sheriff, just a great guy. But I still remember this. So they partnered with us on all these different things. When Marsha and Frank started a midnight basketball league, if you remember that, they had no shootings.
Wow.
Prior to that, when they didn't have that basketball league, they were shooting in Warrensville Heights. When they started that midnight basketball league, there was no shootings.
Wow.
And I'll still never forget that. So innovative thinking on their part, you know, strategic thinking. And that's what I think, you know, makes a difference in life. We got to continue to try to do different things. This isn't easy. You know, we've been around a long time.
Correct.
These young men over there, they're going to think things are going to be easier.
That's correct.
So,
that's correct.
You know, a good saying in my office, I use all the time: success is going from failure to failure with great enthusiasm.
Exactly.
Winston Churchill. So I say that all the time, especially on cold cases, man.
Exactly.
Remember those words.
Exactly. And you know, that's the story of my life. I tell everybody, I definitely learned more from my failures than my successes.
The same way, man.
No,
some of us have to crawl on our hands and knees at first base.
All the time. And even with your kids and stuff. Now I'm in my 50. I'm 56, and I'm getting there. And everybody looked. I'm like, yeah, we make it look easy now. But trust me, it was never easy getting there and everything. So Well, I'd love to work with you on helping you to put that together. Maybe now that she's back home, we can possibly get her to lend some voice to this thing. Because I'm with you, and that's part of what we're doing this show. We got to do something, and part of how we can make our community safer and those things is what we're talking about. So let's run through some things because I do have some good questions. I did take the time to ask. What about Operation 216?
216. We've had a number of operations over the years. 216 was kind of like Operation CLE. So some of these won national awards. But what we do, it's no different than what's happening now, is we bring everybody together from different facets of law enforcement, whether it's state troopers, local agencies, and we partner together and kind of saturate areas.
Mm-hmm. And is that program still in effect right now?
Well, every day we're doing the same thing, but when we put these programs together, we focus and we kind of blitz things together, if that makes sense. So there'll be a number of things we're going to do this summer over the city of Cleveland. That's going to be the same exact thing. Operation CLE, Mike Polenzek, who's now the safety safety director. We put together Operation CLE, which is the same thing, bringing everybody in together, saturating areas, bringing federal agencies, ATF, DEA, my agency together, doing warrant sweeps, bringing the state troopers. And when we do that, we actually started that in 2003 with V-Grip in Youngstown, Ohio. And what I found out back then, once we did that, we saturated that area we did a 2-month period. They used to average 10 homicides. When we did that program, they had 1 homicide over that period of time. So we know we make a difference when we focus together and bring resources together. The question is, we need to find a way to sustain that. Every day my task force is out there arresting the most violent. That's across northern Ohio. When we focus, and we do it in Cleveland, and we focus here, we focus on Lorain and Akron and so on. But when you focus and saturate with those 350 men and women, it makes a big difference.
And when they go away, you're going to keep it going. So you got to keep it sustainable. Let me ask you then, speaking of that, the big thing in our neighborhood of these carjacking, these stealing, the Kia boys and all of that, is that like a thing where you say this task force will come in and you look at an area like that, gangs and that kind of thing?
Yeah, a little bit of everything. So we will focus in areas. It's really up to that local police chief or that sheriff in that area. So if they're having an issue with something, they may call us in to handle that. Whether it's, a number of robberies happen in a certain section of part of town, we could go saturate that area. So we kind of listen to our local partners on that to figure out strategically what we need to do and how we need to do it.
Why also, one of the other things that I definitely need to mention to you, we talked a little bit about it, was human trafficking and sex extortion and that kind of thing. Your office, we have I had Tia and Kamyah and James Woods on, and their son died of sextortion crimes and things of that nature. Human trafficking, though, I know will be something. How significant is that playing a role in our area up here?
Well, again, there's other agencies at hand. We actually have a human trafficking task force that's set up here in Cuyahoga County. We're hand in hand with. It does a really good job. We'll handle the missing kids. Leading in that is human trafficking. Sometimes they're tied together, obviously, right? So sometimes we will have those cases. It's going to be no different than any other area across the state and across the country. I think, we have those cases that go hand in hand with what we do with the missing children.
I got another one for you, Pete. We legalized marijuana in Cleveland, and it's still a federal crime, correct?
Yes.
How you deal with that? I'm talking to my brothers and everybody out there who now think that, it's legal and I can do that. Yeah. It's still a federal crime, Pete.
It is still a federal crime. Look, I don't know if it's being enforced or not being enforced. That is not something that we would handle. The good guy to have on, or good people have on this would be the Drug Enforcement Administration, DEA, that handles that. They have a local boss here in Cleveland. You can ask them that question. So
good question. Technology. How does technology play a role in what you guys are doing now?
Well, it plays a big role in it. There's nothing that I tell kids all the time, you think these pictures go away in a second. They don't. There's nothing that, at the end of the day, we can't monitor. And go and look at.
What about when it comes down, and we talked about the public trust. I think we're good with that one. How do you prioritize your cases, Pete?
Well, by the local department that brings them into us. So, what's important in Lorraine, it may not be important in Akron. That's not important in Cleveland, but may be important in Geauga County. So it's up to those local officers that are bringing those cases to us. Basically, we prioritize it by violent crime. So the number of people we go after is usually for a very violent crime, from homicides to rapes to robberies to those sexual predators I was talking about and so on. When there's a missing kid case that comes in, we're on it right away. I want my people to be on it right away. So we prioritize it, at the end of the day by those local departments bringing it to us.
And Pete, does mental health been playing a big role? That's a big thing that's going on now in our community and stuff. Your task force, how you guys are dealing with that?
Great question, because I just tasked my people with coming up with a plan, a better plan to deal with people that have mental health issues. Right? We have a full-time doctor, psychiatrist as assigned to our task force, which I think is pretty good. We have medics assigned to our task force to help out on that. I want something a little bit more. I want a whole plan in place that, on how we're going to deal with the mentally ill when we approach them if they're wanted on a warrant.
I'm going to let you answer this last question into the camera, and that is, looking ahead, what goals do you have for the Marshal service in the next 5 years? What goals would you like to accomplish?
Goal wise, I want to continue to partner with people in the community, come up with programs like Fugitive Safe Surrender and what we did with the GREAT program, come up with other ideas, partner together with everybody, and hopefully make a difference. We don't want any violent crime anywhere, period. We want safe streets. We're going to continue to work at that. I want dedicated men and women that are going to be committed 100% of the time. I believe I have that in Northern Ohio. And, we're going to continue to partner with everybody, go after the missing very quickly, and go after those that are wanted very quickly, no matter where they run or where they hide.
So, Pete, these are my last 3 questions for you. These are my personal questions. All right. If you could trade places with anybody for a day to do whatever you wanted to do, who would it be? Or if you could talk to anybody.
If I can trade places with anybody, come on, CJ Matthews. He could be on the Titanic. It'd be sinking, and he'd be talking about a great ride it was.
Reverend CJ Matthews.
I love that guy. I told him yesterday. I told him. I said, CJ, I go, you could be on the Titanic and be sinking. You'd be like, this is the greatest ride of my life.
Let me ask you another one then. What is, if you could, let me get it right. The question is, what do you wish you could do better?
Oh, that's I want to do a lot of things better in my life. I want to be a better husband, a better father. I want to be a better boss. I'm never, ever satisfied with anything in life. So, I always move on to the next thing. And it's a little saying in our office, we don't rest on anything. We'll go out and arrest the killer of Jacob Durbin, which we did, which is very, we found the killer of Jacob Durbin and many others, but we don't rest on it. We don't jump for joy, give high fives. We may feel good for a minute, but we move on to the next one because there's always going to be a next one. So great question. If I can do something better, probably be satisfied. I'm never satisfied. It's always going to be continue to move and continue to do something better.
What's the best advice you ever got?
My father. Back a long time ago, never quit. Never, ever quit. No matter what, continue to drive, never quit.
What's the best compliment anybody ever gave you?
Best compliment? Let's see on that. Best compliment. Best compliment. Someone told me a couple of weeks ago I look like Nick Saban.
You kind of do, though. Now that you talk about it, you kind of do.
I don't remember. But someone did tell me that. I was in Charlotte, and they're like, did anybody tell you look just like Nick Saban? I'm like,
what'd you say, Latif?
I said Nick Saban or some kind of actor like a Robert De Niro or.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh, so he's Hollywood. They see
Hollywood.
you should be in California.
Yeah, look, I don't accept compliments
Michael
very
Douglas.
easy at the end of the day. And again, we continue to move forward. I've got great people. Nothing is about me at the end of the day. It's all about them. I'm very, very proud of them. They just worked, I have Annie Murphy, who runs my task force. That's a mother of 2 young kids that spent her whole Mother's Day. She was up 24 hours to try to catch the killer of Jacob Durbin. And, I'm just very proud of them and proud of all the people that work for me and the work that they do. They're committed. I love watching young people grow. I love to be able to hire young people from all different facets that just merge together. And I'm really proud that they're a family. And they treat everything like a family with each other, which I really like.
What's the worst advice somebody ever gave you?
The worst advice? Remember, this is nothing but a job. I think that's, this is nothing but a job. And that's, look, you're called to this profession. I believe in God. I pray every day and every night. I don't mind sharing that with you. The worst advice is again, that treating this like you weren't called to do it. We're all called to do different things in life, and we got to carry that out. You're put here for a purpose, at the end of the day, and it's not about you. It's going to be about somebody else. And, try to do something good for somebody else every single day. That's not going to expect it. If you can do that one little thing, that makes a big difference. That makes a big difference in life. And the other thing is, I think you have all the, people that want this and want that. The greatest key to happiness, in my opinion, is being grateful for what you have. You have to have gratitude every day. Whether it was my mom who cleaned a church for 50 years, she was happy every single day. I've seen so many people. I know so many people from all different things. They think they're this because of their title. They think they're that. They want more. They want to be higher. They want this. They're never happy. No, they're never happy. And it's not so much about, them serving others. Sometimes it's about them serving themselves. Right?
That's correct.
So, we're called to this profession for a reason and a purpose. And I think we should be here in law enforcement to help other people every day.
What's your guilty pleasure? What you do and nobody? What you like to do, Pete?
Ride my bike. Well, I'm going to do that tonight. The only thing I do, at my age, I've got a few years on you, but I've got a bike, and I love riding in the summertime.
How long you ride? What's your distance? Where you go?
I'm not that good. I'm 45 if I'm lucky to an hour.
Okay. But you're getting that in.
Yeah,
that's good.
If I'm able to make it. But
that was it. I can't do that.
The tougher it is. But it's like I love to exercise. I got to work out every single day, and I love riding my bike. That's what I like doing.
And my last one for you, Pete. What never ceased to make you smile when you think about it? Have a hard day and this damn job or this case. You come home or you sit down in your chair. What makes you smile?
Oh, good question. Probably nothing. Everybody accuses me all the time of not smiling. So
no, not daughter, definitely. You smile more than she done probably thought. She was like, he's gonna be really. I'm like, no, I said, why? She's gonna be cool.
What makes me smile?
What makes you give you that good feeling? What makes you know I'm having a bad day and you could think about this experience or something?
Yeah, by the reaction of others. So especially with my employees, when I tell them something good, like they're getting a promotion or they're getting a raise, or I'm bringing them here. I've had so many people that have wanted to come back here for years, and I've been able to bring them back to be with their families.
Wow. Okay.
That makes me happy when I see a mom that's so happy. I've got a young kid I'm bringing back, and he'll be back with us next month or July. He had to go to Arizona and work there for 3 years. But when I got to call him and tell him, the good news, I got to hear his father in the back.
Yeah. Okay.
Young kid, another young kid, same thing. This is a family environment. So, it's about family at the other end of the day. So what makes me smile is their happiness.
DJ, you got anything before we let him out of here?
Yeah, I got 2 questions. Question number 1, if you have multiple agencies on a scene of a crime or, investigating something, who's the leader? Who takes control of that that scene or that crime?
Well, good question, because I've been there before in those cases. Sometimes it's the first one who has the evidence. at the end of the day, such as in that case in Bedford I was talking about with all the explosives in 96. Sometimes that's the case. Ultimately, look, the power in law in the federal system, we should be, I don't care what agency you're with, we should be there as a support mechanism for local law enforcement. Your most powerful law enforcement officers have local policemen. I don't care if it's in Orange, Ohio, or Pepper Pike or Cleveland, Ohio. They're the ones that are the most powerful law enforcement officers out there. Sometimes it gets very chaotic when you got a number of different agencies that are coming together as one. But here in Northern Ohio, I think overall we work pretty well with each other. And there's, for the most part, sometimes there's territorial disputes, but sometimes, at the end of the day, who recovers the explosives has the case first. But often, it's about those partnerships too with those local officers and who that department's going to rely on, and so on. So we never go in an area and take over a case without it coming to us first, being referred by the local department.
Okay. And my second question is, since you guys handle the witness protection program, has there ever been a case where you had to turn somebody away? Like, we don't have any room for witness protection. Like, have you ever been like, hey?
I knew you looked familiar. You were in the program, weren't you?
I got out.
So I
sorry,
actually,
we're full.
Yeah, we're full. No, nothing like that. So
we say sorry,
we're sorry, we're full. You can't. Over the years, I worked the Gotti trials in the 90s in New York City. I worked those mafia trials and witness protection. So I know a little about the witness protection program, the number of people we were able to hide out from the Cleveland area, other places, and so on. We never have lost anybody in the witness protection program when they've adhered to the rules of the program over all these years, no matter what you've heard. But what has happened is this: they don't adhere to the rules of the program because they can't talk to their sister, their mother, their brother, their mom, their dad, their grandmother, aunt, uncle, all contacts gone, whole new identity. They can't do that. And then they leave the program, and that's when issues happen.
So witness protection, y'all really do that? I thought that was TV. Y'all really can give a person a whole, a whole new identity and everything.
I'm going to call you CJ Matthews.
Right. I'm like, here, call me Reverend Matthews.
Reverend Matthews.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so we do it. We get a full-time unit that does it. It's very secretive.
Wow.
Obviously, they do a very good job at the end of the day. But yeah, that's my father ran. My father ran that program during the Danny Green days, and all those. He's the one at the mob days.
Wow.
Yeah. So my father ran.
Do they keep them in the United States?
Yeah.
And could you leave the country if you wanted to, though?
Don't know that part.
So that's classified. All right. So, I really want to thank you for coming on the program, man. I think you did an excellent job. I want everybody to understand this, that, I'm just been podcasting for the last couple of years and doing so and trying to pull this thing together. And I asked some pretty influential folks in the law enforcement to come on our program, and they without hesitation did it. So part of this thing, when we talk about community and trying to have a dialogue with folks, I say that to all the organizations and other folks that are out there that's in that and in the activism world, that maybe you ought to take that note to do that. Talk to some of the folks that are out here in these communities that's doing that. Let's try to build a better relationship with some of the folks we got there, get some understanding, and figure out how we can collaborate on it. I know that our community is a community that is a law-abiding and a what we would call we really want justice and a safe community. And in order to do so, we have to work with the folks in our community to do that. So I don't want y'all to think, oh, Kenn is became a snitch. Oh, Kenn is working with the FBI. Oh, Kenn is bringing it. No, Kenn is trying to bring some understanding for you guys to do better, because I'm not trying to get robbed. And I'm tired of seeing what's going on in our community. So again, I want you guys to take this opportunity to look at these specials we did. I appreciate you coming on our program. My daughter called you, like I said, out of the blue, and you answered our call, man. And not just you, but everybody else we asked to do so. So I know the doors are open for that. So we're going to end our program like we normally do, and I'm going to give you this camera just one last time to just tell the people what you would like to do. Make sure you let them know where they can contact your office at. That's important. And also, if there's anything you feel that our community should do or could do to help bring things or breach or build a better relationship, camera's yours, Pete.
At the end of the day, just be there for each other. Look, this is a team effort at the end of the day. No tip is too small. If there's something that doesn't feel right out there, make the call. The local law enforcement, order my office. We handle, the fugitives that are wanted. Our hotline's 1-866-4-WANTED, 1-866, the number 4-WANTED. We have a missing child unit that's full-time with our sheriff and our police officers, police department here in Cleveland. We have a number of missing child cases. We have a lot of money out there to pay for information. That hotline is 1-877-377 US MS for US Marshal Service. Continue to continue to make calls, give us tips. Let's figure this whole thing out together.
Hey, that is US Marshal Pete. His name is US Marshal Peter is your real name, correct?
Yep.
Peter Elliott. And he is our U.S. Marshal. And like I said in the beginning, he's a guy you may not want knocking on your door, but depending on what it is, you really might want him knocking on your door because he got some resolve for you. So, U.S. Marshal Pete, thank you for coming to our program, and we will see y'all in the next show.